Okay, we're started. This is the first session for the Homestead Sharpshooters training program. I didn't think up the name, but I love that name. Make sure am I in frame there when I'm
It
speaking?
should be a little bit further back. Yeah.
Further back?
The
Okay.
water bottle can move it.
There we go. How's that?
Probably more.
Maybe more? Okay.
That's perfect.
There you go.
Alrighty, Homestead Sharpshooters training program, session 1. There's going to be, I believe, 5 more of these sessions during the course of the year. As students of this course, I will give you my card, give you my contact information. If you guys are interested, I will be sending out emails over the course of the year if you actually want to come shooting with me at the other clubs that I'm here or at the other clubs I'm a member of. I'm also a member next door at BTSA and a member at Straight Shooters in Calgary. I was a former member of the Calgary Shooting Edge before they met their sad demise. I also worked there after I released from the military as a tactical handgun instructor. So basically teaching people the basic fundamentals of action shooting. Quick show of hands here. Does anyone know what I mean when I say action shooting? Hands up. Hands down.
I don't.
No?
So not.
Okay. One hand up. Anybody seen the movie John Wick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. I have one nod. Okay. That movie was actually inspired, or I shouldn't say inspired, Keanu Reeves, to prepare for that movie, he trained with the world champion 3-gun shooter. 3-gun shooting is a form of action shooting that involves pistol, shotgun, rifle. It's basically a very dynamic form of shooting where as opposed to standing static and shooting at a stationary target, you move around in a dynamic stage while there are dynamic arrays of targets, some that are stationary, some that will move. Okay, so that's what action shooting is. Clear as mud on that. Today we're actually not going to be focusing on action shooting. We're just going to focus on the fundamentals of basic pistol marksmanship. All right. If you are interested in doing action shooting, we can talk afterwards, and we can meet up as well. I did found the Action Shooting League at the BTSA, and I know the guys there, and I think I'm pretty sure I'm still welcomed, even though I haven't shot with them in a while, and I'd like to get back into it. Prior to forming the Action Shooting League, I was also a member of the Canadian military. I served with 41 Brigade Calgary with 746 Communication Squadron. I was the unit's small arms training range operator. So the computerized training system that they use to practice their basic tests of elementary training on their C7 assault rifles, C9 light machine guns, rocket launchers, etc. I was my squadron operator, and I actually taught almost all of the soldiers from 41 Brigade who deployed overseas to Afghanistan their basic TOETs. I did want to mention that because I wanted to really honor the past instructors who taught me, and I want to share with all of you the knowledge that they have shared with me. Because, quite honestly, this sport, as we know, has come under intense strain over the course of the last decade, and if we don't keep this knowledge alive, then it will die. And that's kind of a general truism of life, is that if you are not learning and you are not sharing knowledge, well, you are dying, and every community you're a part of will die as well. Not to be macabre like that, but I mean, it's just a fact, right? Knowledge is life. Sharing knowledge is sharing life. So with that, let's get started with basic firearm safety. We all have our licenses here, I presume. We all have our PALs or want to get them. So we assume every firearm is loaded. We control the muzzle at all times. Keep it pointed in a safe direction. Trigger finger should stay off the trigger until we've acquired our target and we're prepared to shoot. Here on the range, we want to be sure of our target and beyond, okay? When we're at home, whenever we handle our firearms or before we handle our firearms, we want to prove them safe. Point in safe direction, remove the magazine, observe the chamber, verify the feed path, and examine the bore. Classic stuff that we all took with our Canada Firearms Safety course. So we all are familiar with that. And all nods all around, okay? Now, it's very, very important for you here, and if you take away nothing from this, you should be able to recite those safety rules exactly as I did, or in some as concise as I did just now. Okay, it's very important to be able to explain those safety rules, because you can't shoot if you don't know the safety rules, and you demonstrate you know how to shoot if you know how to explain the safety rules. Okay, so moving that aside, I have here a couple trainer pistols. Okay, now these are training pistols. You can all see these are plastic. Okay. While we're here in the classroom, I'm going to do something that I may do something that we should not do with any live pistol ever, which is point it at at you guys, or point it in a direction where it's not at a safe backstop, okay? Use these training pistols for a reason, just so you can be able to actually see the biomechanics and the techniques that I use to do so. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Sure.
Nods all around? Okay, so, anybody like watching old action movies?
Sure.
Old World War I, World War II movies? No? Maybe? Okay, so shooting techniques really evolve over the course especially of learned knowledge acquired primarily through military means, but also through law enforcement. Now, if you watch a lot of the old World War II movies where you see especially Americans operating the Colt 1911s, you'll see that they tend to hold like with they shoot like this, cup and saucer. Okay. Now, I'm not going to criticize those guys. My grandfather was a World War II vet, so if he wants to shoot, if he shot a particular way, I'm not going to say he did it wrong. However, modern techniques sort of have evolved, especially as the technology and as the equipment has evolved. What you find more prevalent with modern shooting is this sort of stance and this sort of technique with shooting. You'll notice that my strong hand here has my middle finger underneath the trigger guard, holding it, depending on the type of gun. You want to hold it kind of like a hammer. Now, this training pistol is a Glock, and a Glock 17, or modeled after a Glock 17. And people have said that the Glock 17 is like holding a brick. That's a pretty fair assessment of the Glock, or the ergonomics of a Glock. But again, a lot of modern pistol techniques the Glock is kind of like the standard, I would say, in terms of the setup, or in terms of the ergonomics for a pistol. So what you want to do is hold with your strong hand, your thumb pointed forward. Support hand comes in with your pointer finger wrapped underneath the trigger finger, with your thumb along the frame, such that both of your fingers are pointed forward. Okay? Is that clear to everyone? Can everybody see that? If you want to come in closer to look, that's fine too. If you want me to move over to you, that's fine too. Okay? Now, who here has recently been at a job interview? Anyone? One? I hope it went well. Did it go well? Awesome. I hope you got the job. Did you get the job?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Good man. So whenever you go to a job interview, it's expected that you shake hands. So you want to shake hands with what I like to call a business handshake. Okay? Firm, but not a death grip. Okay? Nice to meet you, sir. I'm Nicholas. Hello, nice to meet you, sir. So, a handshake that conveys respect but not fear, right? And that demonstrates confidence and not insecurity. That's about how hard, or that's the grip that you want to have with your strong hand when you're gripping a pistol, okay? Now, this, as with everything I'm going to teach you, is a generality. This is what I do, okay? If you want to, in some way, modify the technique, by all means, fill your boots, okay? But I strongly recommend, for a starter point, business handshake with your strong grip, with your dominant hand. Support hand comes in, and I would say about 70% of that, okay? That's the grip that I recommend when you're starting off with a pistol. Yes?
Can I ask a question? So, if I shoot a rifle, I'm right-handed, but the dominant eye is the left eye. So I shoot left-handed with the rifle. And I hear you talking about your dominant hand.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's different with a pistol. Do I understand that correctly?
Well, dominant means strong hand. So your strong hand right will shoot with your left.
Well, it's about my eye. My left eye is better.
Your left eye.
I just shoot. I don't need much force for a rifle.
Say that again, please.
Sorry?
Sorry, I missed that last part. Say that last part.
So I shoot with my left hand, although I'm right-handed, because my left eye is dominant eye.
Okay.
Is it the same with pistol or not?
Oh boy, this is a deep conversation here.
Okay. So
No, that's okay, but it's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So your left eye dominant,
yeah,
and you shoot with your left hand, even though you're right-handed with most other things. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
Okay, so
because all I do with my left hand, basically, if I shoot a rifle, is, you just
pull the trigger.
pull the trigger. That's all.
Right. Whatever you do with a rifle, just do with a pistol. In terms of in terms of how you hold it and in terms of how you aim. We'll put it that way to make it simple.
Okay.
There's a lot more, and when we're on the range, we'll unpack that a bit. But whatever you are comfortable with the rifle, do with the pistol for starters.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do.
So, and if we're going lefty loosey, it's just a mirror image of that, like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Key thing is we're shooting a lot of semi-autos. I also have a revolver today. With the semi-autos, make sure your thumbs are pointed forward because every semi-automatic has a slide that comes back and forth, and if you cross your thumbs or do something goofy, that slide will come back and bite you, and then you gotta get. I have a band-aid in the truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
You learn pretty fast.
Yeah, very important. Thumbs on the side pointed forward. Okay. Ooh, that thing's getting toasty in there. I think jab it. Okay. Now, grip. We talked a little about that. Key thing: don't cross the thumbs with the semi-auto. Sights. The prevailing wisdom of the last 20 years has been focus on the front sights. You go on TikTok or YouTube, you're going to find some guy that's going to tell you something different. I'm not going to judge them because usually those guys have a lot more experience and are a lot more esteemed in their shooting careers than I am. But my sergeant major told me focus on the front sight, and that's just what I do. Okay. When you line up, when you square off on your target and you present on your target, your eyes should focus on the front sight. The target should be blurry. The rear sight should be blurry. Anybody shoot iron sights on a rifle? Anyone? One? No. Ghost sights or notch?
Similar to the notch, yeah, notch sights.
Okay. So front sight is one finger. Rear sight is a notch. Okay. This way. Front sight in the middle of the rear sight like that. Level on top. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Sight picture. Talked about sight picture, talked about grip. Let's talk a little bit about stance, okay? There are generally two stances that are kind of within the parlance of modern pistol shooting. And the origins of them come a lot from military law enforcement. The old school guys were proponents of the Weaver stance. So that's kind of like the boxing stance where you're the leg that is the same side as your strong hand is back, and your strong leg's forward. Now your foot position, you can either do it like an L, you can do it like a V, do whatever feels natural to you. Okay. One leg back, squared off, and as you present the gun on the target. Okay. So we kind of see this. This is known as the Weaver stance. Everybody see how my legs are like that? Yep. The reason that stance came into being was that back in the old days, police officers who would get in shootouts didn't wear body armor. And if you blade your body to the target, you present about a 30% smaller target, and that's actually very significant when you're shooting. So if you Kyle over there is shooting at me, and I squared off at him like here, I'm a big target. Like here, I'm a small target. Okay, that's kind of how the Weaver stance came into play. Fast forward to the War on Terror, now all of a sudden everybody's got level 4 ballistic body armor on. Now when you point your side to the target, now you've got this side part of here that's exposed, that's not under armor. So a lot of guys would then switch to the Isosceles stance. Weaver's bladed, Isosceles is triangle. Okay, so this is kind of like your, I don't know, I never did much of sports, so I don't know if those guys in football who stand like this, but feet are squared off to the target, body squared to the target, present the pistol on the target like that. Okay. You will have to experiment to figure out which position you like, and especially if you get into action shooting, you're going to find that all that goes out the window because you're always going to be like leaning around and jumping under targets and doing all kinds of weird stuff. Okay, so don't be too invested or too committed to one technique versus the other. Okay, so we talked a little bit about grip, we talked a little bit about sight picture, we talked a little bit about stance. Did want to mention too, when we're shooting a pistol, it's very important not to lean back like that. That's actually true with any gun, right? But especially new people who don't have any experience with guns, they tend to be frightened and think I have to be like as far back away from it. Well, with the 22, you can get away with that. Even with the 9mm, you can get away with that for the first 2 or 3 shots. You go on up to like the 45, 454 Casull, then you're gonna be like, whoa, and then the range officer will have to give you a little push. Don't lean back, lean forward into it, okay? Questions so far on any of this? Does this all make sense? Clear as mud?
I just want to clarify one thing you said. So you said focus on the front sight. So the front sight's in focus,
Mhm.
the rear sight's not in focus, and the target's not in focus. Is that
That's correct.
Okay.
When we're on the range, I'll talk a lot more about that because there's also a lot of biomechanical and psychology to that. But yeah, we'll talk more about that when we're actually shooting. But correct, focus on the front side.
And one more question. When you're in your stance, do you want your elbows locked or slightly bent?
Okay. That, ideally you want it as extended as far as you can as is comfortable. Okay. Now, again, everybody has some different biomechanics. Some guys might have arthritis and doing that might hurt. If your arms are straight, it's just like, anybody here a mechanical engineer by chance? Or civil engineer? Anybody study engineering by chance? Straight members are stronger than bent ones. So, you know, one 2x4 will be stronger than a two 2x4 that are at an angle, especially when dealing with the force of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you want them locked if you can, if that's comfortable.
That's right.
Okay.
And ideally, and again, most people will say you do want them fully locked,
Okay.
but again, if it hurts, then that's you can't do it. I met one guy, a big bodybuilder type guy I used to shoot with. He absolutely could not go full extension. He just had just gigantic like pythons on his arm there. So I was like, are you trying to like? He's like, that's as far as I can bend my arm. I'm like, okay. So, but he shot great, right? The key thing with a lot of these things is if it's safe, if it's comfortable, and you're hitting the target, it's right. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so grip, sight picture, stance. Let's talk a bit about breathing. Now this is a really important life skill, even beyond shooting, okay? There's a concept known as combat breathing, all right? This is something that SEALs and SWAT operators use a lot of, or it's called combat breathing or box breathing or tactical breathing. Count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Repeat that process. Okay. A lot of high stress or individuals who have high stress professions actually are taught that technique because it's a way to actually break your body from the fight-flight response. I forgot what it is, the parasympathetic nervous system, I think, maybe. But with handgun shooting more so than rifle shooting, flinch is what will cause you to miss. Flinch is anticipation of recoil and anticipation of the muzzle blast. Okay. Who here knows actually, have you all shot rifles before? Everybody shot a rifle before?
Yeah.
Who here can tell me where in your breathing cycle you should shoot?
Ideally, if you, well, at least it's what I try to do. I breathe out and then I don't do anything and then I try to shoot.
Excellent answer. Anyone else?
That, or you're holding in, you breathe in, or you breathe out.
Hold in your breathing or breathe on the out breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Anyone else? The way that the Canadian Army teaches infantry is on the out breath. And they teach a breathing cycle to breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in halfway, breathe out. Just before the bottom of the breath, hold, shoot, shoot. Breathe out all the way. Breathe in and reset. Okay, so for infantry style rifle marksmanship, that's kind of how you shoot. Shooting on the out breath is when you have the least likelihood of flinching. That's why they teach that technique. When you breathe in, you elevate the oxygen levels within your blood, which causes all of your muscles to actually be energized. When you breathe out, but aren't fully holding your breath, as in your right foot close to the bottom of the breath, the body pulls oxygen away from your muscles so that your brain can still have enough oxygen, and it actually subdues or forces your muscles not to tense up. Okay? When you flinch with a pistol, all that's happening is right before the shot breaks to when the shot breaks, your muscles are all just tensing up and tightening up. Because a pistol only has 2 points of contact, your hands, compared to a rifle which has 3, your shoulder and your hands, those little micro movements in your whole body cause flinch. Okay, so that's why breathing is so important in abrogating or reducing the chance of flinching. That's true with every single gun, shotgun, pistol, or rifle as well. Okay, you want to shoot on the out breath. Now, when you're like at home, you know, playing video games or like cooking or doing chores, you actually can practice this, and I do this all the time. Now, I mentioned the 4-count box breathing: in 4, pause 4, out 4, pause 4. You can actually do variants of it, and what I like to do is I actually try to extend my out breath to as long as 50, depending on what I'm doing. So breathe in to the count of 4, pause to the count of 4, out to the count of 50. I don't recommend that's not a beginner's technique, but if you can extend your out breath, what you can do is you can actually continue to take follow-up shots and still be at the bottom of the breath. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, does that make sense? Now, I actually do post replays of some of my shooting videos on my YouTube channel. You'll actually see that I do that, like that breathing. It's boring as hell to watch, but watch how I breathe, and you can see I practice those techniques, both rifle and pistol. Okay, talked a bit about breathing. Okay, there's a lot of like niggly things about hands as well, and I'm gonna try to wrap up here because that we want to be more hands-on when we talk about those things. But the crux of it is, you have 10 fingers, right? As a part of your hand that is connected to your wrist, your forearm, and your whole entire body. There's a lot going on there that influences how you shoot your pistol, okay? So what tends to happen a lot of times is you're shooting for groups on paper, and then you'll notice that, oh, okay, well, say this is my target, I'm getting all my shots up here, okay? Why? Well, it could be a couple of reasons. First off, what hand are you shooting with? Hank there's shooting with his left hand. Everybody else is shooting with their right, I presume. The reason why Hank might be shooting up here would be the exact opposite as could be the exact opposite as everyone else. Sorry?
I shot a pistol once, someone tried to teach me, and I exactly opposite. Down a left one. There.
Down left? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Shooting down to the left. Okay, well why? Sorry?
Yeah, exactly down to exactly. Yeah, there.
Okay. A left-handed shooter going down to the left. Okay. A couple reasons for that. One, shot anticipation. Maybe try not to breathe shoot on the right part of the breathing cycle. Okay. So there might be a flinch. There's very often a flinch when the shooter shoots down. Okay. To the left, it can be with the grip. You know, we were talking about that grip. A left-handed shooter who tenses up these fingers as they shoot is prone to jerking the gun to the left. Okay, it's actually the same as opposite with a right-handed shooter. Okay, if you tense with these fingers, the gun will pull to the right. Right?
Trigger finger.
Sorry?
Could be his trigger finger.
It could also be the trigger finger.
Too much, too little, whatever.
Too much, yes. And this is why it's good. We have 7 pistols that we're going to try to. I brought 7 pistols for you to try today. Different pistols have different. Every pistol has a different trigger. Even, you know, I brought 3 Glock 48s today. Okay, you're going to find that all 3 of them are different, slightly. Okay, so each trigger is different. So just because you shot one Glock 17 and you put another Glock 17, to the untrained eye they're very close. But if you've played around with them, you've actually really pay attention to the trigger, you'll find that it's different. But there's very slight differences to them. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot more about that when we're on the range itself. All those little biomechanics, and we're going to be plinking at steel. We're going to see like all that, and we're going to try to correct it. Okay, so let's recap. We talked grip, sight picture, breath, stance. Let's talk really quick about trigger pull. Okay, because we're shooting semi-automatics. This is also true with semi-automatic rifles as well. There's a technique called catch the link. Okay, so boom, or tap, or load, make ready, present on target. You will notice this especially with the Glocks later on today that we shoot them. You come up on target, you pull the trigger. You'll notice that as you squeeze the trigger. As you squeeze the trigger, you'll notice there's some slack. Okay, as in the trigger moves as you apply pressure to it. Eventually, it hits something called the wall. Okay, where the trigger just stops moving. Okay, different guns have a different wall. They all feel a little bit different. And this is also true with every gun you shoot, shotgun or rifle. You hit the wall. Let's say it's about you've applied 3.5 pounds of pressure. Okay, at 3.6 pounds of pressure, the trigger breaks. Okay, that's when the actual shot will fire because the firing pin or striker mechanism will fire at that point. With a semi-automatic pistol or a semi-automatic rifle, what you do is you hold the trigger down. Okay, the shot fires, the action cycles. You've maintained control of the trigger. You slowly let off the slack on the trigger until you feel the trigger reset. Okay, in shooting, especially this is so critical for action shooting because that's how you actually make very fast follow-up shots. Because you think about it, you're applying 3.5 pounds of pressure to get to the wall. You're applying an ounce of pressure to get the shot to break. When the shot breaks, you reset the trigger back to 3.5 pounds. At that point, you just need to apply like an ounce of pressure to get the shot to break again. That's efficiency in your trigger pull compared to letting off the trigger and then reapplying 3.5 pounds to find out where the link was again. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Or is that like really complicated?
So with the second shot, because you have far less pressure on the trigger just to break the shot, you should be more, well, it should be easier to maintain proper aim.
It's more consistent, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of new shooters, they'll just like shoot and let off, shoot and let off, shoot and let off, shoot and let off. And in truth, you do that with a bolt action or a pump action or a lever action. You kind of have no choice. With a semi-auto, you can maintain that trigger control, maintain the trigger, maintain the positioning of your finger on the trigger, so that the shot is more consistent. Okay, I'm going to go deep down a rabbit hole here because there's this whole elaborate psychological process between how you acquire the target, acquire the sights, get your stance in. You want as little variability in that whole thing as possible. So catching the link allows you to be more consistent in that particular shooting cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, I feel so. This should feel a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. Are there any questions about any other questions about this or anything I've talked about up to this point? No? Okay. The last thing I'm going to teach you guys, and this is probably the most important part of what we're doing here today, is I'm going to teach you guys how to actually watch other people shoot, because that will help you become an excellent, much better shooter than the things that will make you an excellent shooter are practice and watching other people shoot and watching yourself shoot. Okay. Hello, are you here for the Handgun course?
Yeah.
Okay, you're a little bit late.
I know.
That's okay. What's your name, friend?
Bureau.
Here?
Yeah.
Grab a seat now. Well, I will bring you up to snuff okay, I'll give you the crash course because but the full course is recorded, so you can watch it on my YouTube channel. I'll give you the crash course once we're closer out there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Apologies for sounding like a broken record, everybody. For Daryl's sake, we covered grip. Okay, thumbs on the side. We covered stance. You can either be weaver with your bladed or triangle squared off to the target. Okay. We talked about sight picture. Focus on the front sight. Target blurry, rear sight blurry. Okay. For open sights that we shoot or iron sights, front sight in the middle of the rear notch, level on the top, lined up on target. Okay. When shooting a semi-auto, thumbs on the side. Thumbs do not cross your thumbs. Okay. Talked a bit about breathing. When you shoot, and not just a pistol, shoot anything, you want to try to shoot close to the bottom of your breath. As in, you inhale, you exhale, close to the bottom. That's when you want to break your shot. Okay. Now, for you guys who were paying attention, did I miss anything? Or you guys were here and paying attention. Did I miss anything? That sound about right?
No, that's it.
Okay.
About it.
The last thing we were going to teach is actually how to watch other people shooting. Okay. Now I'm going to end the video off here after when we do this as a live demonstration. What I'm going to do is get everybody to come up here. I'm going to get everybody positioned as both a shooter with these training guns and then as an observer to whoever's practicing. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
Sure.
All right. Let's close the video up there and let's get some hands on. Thanks, guys.